Hello, and there is only one topic of discussion today, and that is all things Harry Kane. Should he stay or should he go? We're going to discuss that. Roll the intro. And welcome to the Lost in Possession podcast. On Monday night, Harry Kane equalled Jimmy Greaves' iconic goal scoring record for Tottenham Hotspur as his side won 1-0 against Fulham. And after the game, Harry Kane said he was open to perhaps extending his stay at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for another goodness knows how long, at 29 years old, which is starting to beg the question, is that the right decision for him to do? He's arguably at the peak of his career, peak of his footballing powers, and yet he's got no major trophies to show for it. Is the goal scoring record more important to him, or does he want a nice medal to look at, upon his retirement? So we're going to discuss that today, and we're going to, really see what we think is the best path for Harry. So if you are listening, Harry, do feel free to take our advice, or of course, don't. It's completely up to you. But viewer, listener, we would also like to hear from you. Are you a Spurs fan? Would you like to see Harry Kane go? Would you happily cash in? Or, you know, do you think he's better off staying at your club? It's a real 50-50 one, this, because, he is such a good player. So before we begin, make sure that you like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Anything you can do to help us grow that YouTube algorithm, get the views up on Spotify, etc., etc. We do appreciate it, and we'll be forever grateful. And it helps us keep going with content like this, and of course, make content even better. So the more, the merrier. So, Jamie, let's start with you. Let's talk about Harry Kane. I know your club was linked to him the summer of 2021, which looked like it was going to happen. He wanted it to happen, it seemed like, before things disappeared. It didn't look like you missed him in the end or needed him in any case. But, what are your thoughts on Harry Kane as a player?
Like he's an absolute terrific player and one of the best strikers in the world. And that's where I think that's why this conversation gets brought up sort of more and more now. Because no trophies and Spurs do not look like getting one anytime soon. We're doing this before the FA Cup game against Preston recording. They could even be knocked out in that game, sort of in Spurs fashion. They've got to a few finals in the sort of while Kane's been at the club, but in them finals they've actually done nothing. He's not scored any, and they've not looked like winning. The last one came against City in the League Cup final, and that was where Mourinho got sacked before, and Ryan Mason took over his second game versus a Guardiola side. And I don't think they had. I think they had maybe one or two shots in the whole game, and I don't think any were on target. So Spurs just aren't winning trophies, and for someone who's, like you say, in their prime now, because if you look at his stats this season, it's actually been phenomenal. And unfortunately for him, Haaland has just sort of blown it out of the water, he's got four Premier League hat-tricks, which is just ridiculous. So if you just ignore Haaland for this, Kane's having such a great season. And it just begs the difference. Like, why are you still at Spurs and not at one of these top European clubs? If you're sort of going, I don't want to play against Spurs scenario, Bayern would take you. I think that's probably the most likely. PSG might, with I don't know what's going on like long term with the Mbappe. Then you got Messi, who's still rumoured possibly to extend, possibly not. So it's like I still think there are options for him, and Real Madrid's obviously another. So there's definitely options, but then you've obviously got the English clubs. You're not going to go to Arsenal, even though I don't think they could afford him really, and won't go there. Chelsea, likewise, both being London clubs. But then City and United, there were definitely opportunities for him to go there, especially City, like you said, in the transfer window. I don't understand why he didn't push it more, because he could have had a Premier League trophy by now. And the only thing that you can get at Spurs is being Spurs' all-time top goal scorer. And those you winning a Premier League trophy, no one can take it away from you, apart from if you're Juventus, really, and whole match fixing stuff. But like that record, it might be there for a while, but it's going to get broken, and then I guess it's just sort of like your name just goes slowly and slowly out of history. He's obviously got the England goal scoring record to beat as well, but he could still do that at another club. I think he should go, and I think he should be looking probably this summer because it's not getting any better at Spurs. It looks actually like it's probably getting a bit worse.
Yeah, I think that's the question at this point. Like, can they actually compete? Because everyone thought, I think this season at the start with Conte, a few seemingly good signings, everyone was going, oh, they're going to push the title, they're going to push top four. And it's just not happened at all. And Spurs, in terms of reviewing their season, start of the season, they were playing badly and winning. Then they were playing badly and drawing, and now they're playing badly and losing. And it doesn't feel like that's Kane's fault. And as you said, despite them being in bad form, he's still actually having a very good goals return this season. But it's not getting spoke about, one, obviously because of Haaland's sort of joke form and his record. But also Spurs just haven't been playing exciting football. No one's really been talking about them in a positive light. And I do think he is going to have a real decision to make. I agree with you, Jamie. It probably is going to be this summer. But I guess the question is there going to be clubs who can put the pressure on and actually come in for a bid? Because the City situation you had before was like, there's money on the table. That was a big deal. That was like, we genuinely want Kane. That was before Haaland. And I guess, you can make arguments if Kane had actually gone to City, maybe he would have won the league as well. Maybe City never would have signed Haaland as well. Like, there's so many different sort of things that could have happened as a result of that. But at the minute, I think the fact he's going to be Spurs' all-time scorer isn't a trophy, but that is a big deal to a player. Like, I get your point. You can be beaten in history, but like, Jimmy Greaves, he's not been playing for a while. Like he's been that top scorer for a very long time, and there's not anyone in the ranks at Spurs at the minute who you could think, oh yeah, they're going to beat Kane's record, right? So to play devil's advocate, I guess give the point of him staying, regardless of Spurs whether they win or not. Win a trophy or not, he will always be regarded as a legend, and he will be that club's top scorer for a very, very, very long time. So I think that's the benefit or the why I can understand he might stay. I think as well,
like, he should beat that this year, if that makes sense. If he should score one more goal,
yeah,
and it probably will come this weekend if he plays against Preston. So it's like, what's actually keeping him there after that?
Yeah, I mean, well, this is where it gets interesting because I would then argue the Premier League record, right? So again, being and striving to be the Premier League's all-time top scorer is then even a bigger deal than being Spurs', I'd say. And looking at the minute, he's on 199 goals at the minute, which is currently third. You've got Rooney on 208, which Kane is almost certainly he might beat this season. Then you've got Shearer, top dog Shearer, 260. So Kane's now, he's certainly not towards the end of his career. And he's only got 61 more goals to be the all-time Premier League top scorer. So again, I do think that might be a reason that he'll stick at Spurs and kind of just bite the bullet that a trophy is probably unlikely. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. And I guess to your point, like, I guess your argument would be, oh, he can stay in the Premier League and still be the all-time top scorer. But is he going to go to City? No. You can't have Kane and Haaland. Like, it's just not going to work. You've got your main striker, so City won't be in the race. And as you said, Chelsea, Arsenal seems very unlikely. So I don't know what will happen.
That's interesting to say. Like, I've got a few more questions to obviously ask, and I think, yeah, it is. I think I'm sure at Kane's house at the moment, the clash is, shall I stay or shall I go? It's probably playing constantly for him in his head. Um, it's an interesting one because you've mentioned about records, you know, with Greaves' record and things of that nature. But do you, in that case, then, do you think that strikers or Harry Kane in particular is more bothered about those records than he is trophies, even at this moment in time, or do you think that's nonsense? Do you think he wants trophies, or because surely if he wanted trophies, he would have really pushed for that move last year. I know that's not really his personality to do that, but it'd just be interesting to see what you think. Is he more interested in the record?
I think he
I
did though.
think
He
he
did push
did,
for the
yeah.
lead. He did push for
Not
the
as
lead.
Sally could have done, I'd say.
He probably could have done more, but then doing the interview with Neville, that was sort of a big, oh yeah, I could go for 100 million kind of thing. It was that whole interview annoyed a lot of people who wanted Kane to stay, because it was like a move to get out, and I think there probably were talks on, can I go if we get this X amount or whatever. But there, yeah, he could have pushed more, but I think he also went with the, I want to slightly respect the club and try and leave. And that's where I think the downfall came for the City deal, really. I think if he pushed more, he probably could have gone and been a City player now. But it's more, I think right now, because he decided to stay after that, there was no reason to look at anywhere else apart from the records. Because unfortunately they've not been in any finals or anything like that.
I think to that point though, I'm going to make the case for Spurs, which is a rare thing, but Spurs have, despite again the lack of trophies, they have got in managers like Mourinho, like Conte, who are very well respected, have the ability and have shown the ability to win trophies. Although so far you'd argue Conte's not working out, they are, in terms of Levy having that conversation with Kane, like, look, we're going to give you X amount of money, you can beat the record. We do bring in the top managers of the world. I do think there is some points to him staying because as a manager, like they have been to a Champions League final, right? Like, that's pretty mad to even think that, considering the Spurs we've sort of, come to know the last.
To be fair, that was because they were without him.
Well,
Their most games he wasn't there, and then he got to the final.
So yeah, I mean that's a
It
difficult.
wasn't even down to him.
This is an interesting point, though, isn't it? When you think about it like that, right? I'll ask another question again, but Harry Kane, they play to his strengths at Spurs, and I think they fall. I think that's their biggest strength, but also their biggest weakness. Because if you take Kane out of that team, they're not just looking for Kane to get the goals. They give the, I found Son thrive quite a bit when Kane isn't playing. Moira probably gets forward more at the time. Charlison would probably play better in the sort of thing. I think if they took him out, they're probably going to be a little bit more open in how they're going to get results. And they get to the Champions League final, for example. So that ties in nicely with the next question, because do you think he's just comfortable at Spurs because they play to his strengths there? Like will he be able to cut the mustard? Because if you look at his career, when he went out on loan, Leighton Orient, okay, for example, 18 appearances, 5 goals in all competitions. Millwall, 27-9. Norwich 5-0, Leicester City 15-2. These were hardly, great numbers. And many players that had played with him at those clubs have said they didn't really think anything was going to come of him as a player. He gets thrown in to the team by Tim Sherwood back in 2013-14. And he just comes to life. In his breakout season, he got, I think it was, about 4 in 19, which is not, for someone that young, you can't expect much. But then he bursts into the scene with 31 in 51. That's an insane jump. So it makes you think, would he be able to thrive at another club? Because at Man City, his role would be completely different. He'd be expected to have a wider contribution, not just give Harry the ball. And that's not me being critical of Harry Kane at all. I think he's world class and I think he will break the record if he stays in the league. But it's just, could he cut the mustard somewhere else?
Yes, I think he could. I think he could at pretty much every club. I think it's unfair to look at his loan seasons because he was young and he I think you matured, like he matured as a player, and it's sort of like I'll compare him to probably another player at Spurs with Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale was looking to get sort of transferred out for like 2 million. I remember, I can't remember who to, and it was just like he wasn't looked in anything. Then they changed his position for a few games, and then he then turned into be what £100 million to Real Madrid, winning multiple Champions League finals, scoring an overhead kick, most memorably in one of those. I think Kane could do it elsewhere, definitely. I think he's good enough as a player, and I think he's a much different player from when he was at these other clubs. So yeah, I definitely think he can cut it anywhere. In terms of him being comfortable, you're probably right. He is comfortable when it's something that I think he's going to regret. I think a trophy, even if he just got one trophy, like I think that would make all the difference. So I do think he was actually, because I think even if he didn't do it, he was desperate. He's probably desperate to win something with England, and we've had the chance, we've had the chance in the Euro final. So I think, and then he's obviously missed the penalty in the World Cup. I think like that was there was added pressure to him for this, for them sort of games. But I do think he can cut it anywhere. Really, I think he's good enough.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm glad you brought up Gareth Bale because I think that should slightly be playing on his mind because Gareth Bale made the move. He many would have called it selling out at the time, but he was a record transfer, I believe, at the time. And he now is probably the most decorated British player of all time. And, you can make the argument, was he better than Kane? I don't know, but Kane's a better goal scorer either way. So Kane, I do think that's got to be on his mind. Can I just follow in? Because I do think the move to Real Madrid in terms of options makes sense. Benzema has been phenomenal, but he's coming towards the end of his career. Real Madrid would probably want an old school new striker. Kane fits the bill. So I do think in terms of actually moving and where would he go? I wouldn't be shocked if Real Madrid, I know they've been talking Mbappe this and Mbappe that, but I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if Real Madrid come in with a bid this summer or next. And I do think he's got to take that seriously. Real Madrid, we know, no one needs a lesson on how many Champions Leagues they've won. But, the chances of them winning a trophy is almost, within 5 years is almost, 90% plus. So I think it's going to be a very tough summer for Kane. And I guess if he did win one with England, I do think again it kind of justifies what he's done. Like let's say he stays at Spurs, all-time record Spurs scorer, breaks the Premier League record, and wins any trophy with England. I don't think he'll give a shit personally. That's a successful career. He'll be remembered in history, and he'll be the legend who captained England to a trophy. Obviously, that's ifs and buts, but I do think that is also worth considering.
It's so hard to like. It's so hard to actually do that, considering
yeah, we've seen
England haven't won one longer than Spurs haven't won a trophy.
Yeah.
So, and it's harder in international level. I think with what you're saying, Real Madrid, I think Bayern would probably be the best, because they should win the league every year.
Yeah.
And now Lewandowski's gone. There's just the gap there for him. Whereas otherwise, Real Madrid, they've got Benzema still, and I know like you're saying he's ended his career, but there's still that gap, and that can cause sort of some issues where Bayern that striker role is there for him.
Yeah, the thing is though, right, and here's my logic against that, is going to a German league where Bayern Munich are almost nailed on every year to win the league. He could go to the Bundesliga and win 2 German titles, let's say. But for me, I think even winning a Carabao Cup or a Conference League with Spurs would mean so much more than winning 3, 4, piss easy Bundesliga titles. And I do think it's about more than that. Like
yeah,
Spurs winning the first trophy would be bigger than Bayern Munich winning the league, obviously.
yeah. I mean, I personally think he's desperate to get the monkey off his back, isn't he? And I think he's desperate to do it with Spurs, which is completely understandable. Um, I think it's hard for him because his career at the moment, we mentioned Jimmy Greaves, right? You know, if we look at Jimmy Greaves' achievements as a player, he played during Tottenham's golden era. You know, two FA Cup wins with them. Community Shield, European Cup Winners' Cup. Runners up. He won a World Cup with England. Serie A with Milan. So he went round and backing up his goal scoring record is probably not the right way to phrase it, but he got success. Harry Kane's got the goal scoring record, but he's always the bridesmaid. Two runners up in the League Cups, a few semi-finals in the FA Cup, Champions League runner up, Euros runner up. He's got the goal scoring record, but he's got nothing to show for it. Ben Watson won the FA Cup with Wigan in 2013. I bet you he looks back on that medal, even though everyone would be like, oh, but what careers he had. He can still look back at a medal. He can still look back and say, at least I've got one. And he wasn't a bad player in all fairness to him. Whereas Bale, he won his trophies. I believe he won a League Cup with Spurs, but he's won the majority of his trophies when he made that decision to move. He'd been at Spurs a long time. And we're saying, Bayern Munich are a good option for him. I would agree Bayern Munich are a good option for him. I think Real Madrid are a sensible option for him. Even at 29, you probably get, another 5-6 years out of Kane? Other clubs, I mean, realistically, they're probably the two big clubs in for him.
But be United as well.
Well, domestically, yeah, United would be a good fit for him. I think.
Well, I think Newcastle are probably going to win a trophy before Spurs.
Potentially, but I don't think he fits Newcastle's philosophy of what.
No, that's a whole another matter.
Well, United haven't won a trophy for 6 years. Is that?
You
could go to United and they'll not win.
But one of United, Newcastle are in the final, going to be in the final.
Yeah, and it's their Man United's course of direction is completely different at this moment in time, and I think there is a likelihood of winning a trophy potentially this year with them. He's not going to go to Chelsea. He's not going to go to Arsenal. His chance at City's, I would arguably say, is gone. So I think, if he's not going to go to Man United, he's got to look internationally if he decides he wants to leave. And again, I think there's slim pickings there for how football has changed now. But I would like to. Do you think Harry Kane is going to end his career with silverware? First of all, do you think he'll win any at Spurs, say he plays for another 5-6 years? Or do you think he will win some silverware in general, even if he goes at another club or wins of England? Do you think he's going to do it?
If he stays at Spurs, no. No, I don't see it. I see United they're going to be more on the rise. They're outspending what Spurs will, and should create a better squad, although they've not done it like in the last sort of 6 years, I think Jordan said. Newcastle on the rise. They're going to start putting their foot down on spending and getting a better squad competing. City are there. Chelsea are starting to spend money. Arsenal have obviously got to their top of the league. They're sort of now competing. I just think it's getting harder and harder, and I don't see Spurs competing on the levels, especially money-wise, to bring in these players. And I think, yes, they've got the manager. Conte will win things, sort of as you've shown in his career, but he can only do so much. And I think the very best would be a League Cup. And I disagree with you, Jordan. I think a few Bundesliga titles is more impressive than a League Cup. But I do get your argument of Bayern always win the Bundesliga. But I still don't see Spurs even probably. You can't. I don't think you can bank on the Bayern winning the titles. You're risking it with the League Cup or FA Cup, whatever, for Spurs. So I just don't see it.
I just think Bundesliga maybe is a bad example, but I just think that's a cheap way out to win. As I said, it's like almost, I don't know. I feel like that would be a bit of a sellout because they're almost guaranteed to win the league, and it's just like you're just going there for a guaranteed trophy. I do think going Real Madrid, Barcelona shows a bit more ambition. Even PSG, same thing as Bundesliga, really.
No, but like Bayern still have a chance of winning the Champions League.
Yeah,
Sort of
you'd be going for that. Yeah,
it's not going to be specifically just to win. It's one that he needs, like, to get a trophy. Then you've got that.
Yeah.
Then he's still going to be competing. Like, there'd be a very good force in the Champions League. So I think it wouldn't just restrict him with that. It might be the easy way out in getting a trophy, but it's still a significant trophy. And it's something that he probably, like, in my opinion, won't get at Spurs.
Yeah, I think despite all of that, obviously there's more attempts for Spurs to win a trophy each year. I do think he's probably best chance of winning a trophy is with England. Obviously, we've touched on it. The Euros, will be among the favourites as we always are, but the Euros feels like a good opportunity, and I do think it's more likely in that England team with a team full of stars that you're going to win a trophy. Obviously, maybe it might be Southgate, might not be, but even with Conte at Spurs, it just doesn't look to be working. And I'm reluctant to say, because I would have said the same thing about Arsenal last season. They've got, they're 10 years off winning the title, and you see this season and everything's just clicked overnight, and it's like they could genuinely win the league. So that could happen with Spurs, maybe. But right now, it doesn't look to be working with Conte. And it's hard for me to make a case for Spurs winning a trophy in the next 5 years. So I guess to conclude my argument, I do think he probably has to leave if he's that bothered about trophies.
I mean, I think he can do it. I think everyone says he's not working out with Conte at the moment, but he hasn't really got all his players in yet, has he? Yes, they probably need a little bit more investment. Maybe they do need to focus on bringing out some better youth quality or anything like that, as well as incorporating that around him. Maybe cashing on Son to get some extra money to perhaps build around that. I don't know, but I think he's capable. At the moment, they've been knocking on the door for a while and they've changed too many managers too quickly. If they believe in the project, then I think he can do it. And he seems to believe in it under Conte. So I think it's possible. Unfortunately, time is not on his side. I think there is that aspect in my head where I look at it and think, sometimes don't always listen to your heart. Don't always think I can keep staying here when he could probably make that decision and go if he wants a quick one. But I agree, if he goes to Bayern Munich, he's just another cog in the machine, isn't he? No one remembers Harry Kane if he won them 5 titles with Bayern Munich. Probably not. At Tottenham, he will be remembered forever if he wins something. Like I said, you look at Jamie Vardy, he could have probably gone to a bigger club and won a trophy, but it probably wouldn't have had that same feeling. It's still a medal regardless. But I get what you mean. Like, winning it with Spurs is just that element of, I did it. That's history right there. I think he can do it, but I also think I also think that a move is not going to do him much harm, because every single season his value goes down, I would say. Because at 29 years old, let's be honest, you can look at a lot of replacements that are probably going to fit your system a little bit better, who are younger. So it's a real tough one for him, and I do feel sorry for him, because he does seem a nice guy, and he's lived the Roy of the Rovers career, really, boyhood club and whatever, and local lad, etc. He's had the chance to do it, and I sometimes think maybe he's just got to be a little bit more ruthless and say that he could potentially go, but I think he can do it at Spurs if the plan is in place.
Yeah, and I think one final point as well is, obviously he is 29, although we're saying that's, the chances of a move are dwindling. I think with his playing style, he's not a fast sprinter. He's not, although he drops deep, he's not sprinting over the pitch, he's pressing. So he is a kind of player who could probably have a career into the 35, 36, that kind of age. So he has, in that sense, still got, 6, 7 years of possibly good football left in him. And whether it's Spurs, whether it's England, whether it's another club, there is enough time for him to turn it around and go down as one of the game's greatest ever strikers, or maybe the Premier League's ever strikers, maybe not in the world. But that just about wraps us up for another edition. As always, Spurs fans in particular, let us know your thoughts. Would you like to see Kane go and reinvest the money? Would you like him to stay and be an undisputed Spurs legend? But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.
Here we go.